Welcome, everyone. I'm Kimberly Boschman, and this is the Intentionally Intuitive Podcast. In this episode, we're going to take a look at life path number 5 and the possible influences of each zodiac sign. So I recommend, as you go through this video, listening to your sun, moon, and rising signs so that you can gain a greater understanding and a bigger perspective of what you could be working with in this lifetime. Timestamps are provided below, as well as calculations for your particular life path number if you're not sure what that is. So let's get started. Aries, if you are an Aries, sun, moon, or rising, and you are also a life path number 5, then this reading is for you. So we're going to take a look at the higher and lower expressions of Aries as well as life path number 5 to see how these energies complement one another as well as potentially work against one another, which could create some of the challenges that you'll face throughout your lifetime. So when we look at Aries, Aries is of course a fire sign. When Aries is in its highest expression, we see passion, motivation, confidence with relentless determination. Aries can be very direct in their approach. When they see something they want, they go after it, and nothing's going to stand in their way. They're very determined. When Aries is in its lower expression, we see lack of patience, mood alteration. They're quick to anger. They can be impulsive, aggressive. And there's this sense of martyrdom where they're like, we're going to save the world. And this warrior energy comes out, but almost to the extreme. And so when we look at the higher and lower elevations of the 5, we can see how these energies sort of complement one another, but also there's a little bit of a push and pull here. So we have 5 energy, which is mostly extroverted. 5 energy is a very fast moving energy. Your mind is usually racing. You're usually want to, go on an adventure. You usually 5 energy. If you have a lot of 5s in your chart, it helps you to be active each day, work out each day or, whatever, just something to move the energy because it's very fast moving energy. And so is Aries. So if you have a lot of Aries and you have a lot of 5s, especially life path number 5, you're going to have a lot of energy that just wants to be moved. So you're going to be constantly needing to move your body to move the energy to the best, of your ability that you can do. So 5 energy is actually more associated with Gemini. It's an air element. And so we have this air feeding this fire of Aries, right? And this fire of Aries having the potential to sort of get out of control, right? So it becomes sort of a balancing act with the two energies. 5 energies, when we look at the positive traits, we see versatility, very humorous or witty energy, tolerant, creative, artistic, quick thinking, eager to learn, loves to travel and explore. They're the visionaries of numerology, in the sense that they're think beyond the scope, right? They are the expansive thinkers. They do their best outside the comfort zone. They're okay with change and adaptability and all of that stuff. It just comes sort of naturally for 5s, mainly because they're so used to change. Things are usually happening very rapidly in their life. There's usually constant flux, change, transformation. And it's not necessarily that they love that. It's just that they get used to that. They learn to adapt to it and they work with the energy because it's obviously they chose that for a reason. 5s like to be constructively busy when they're in their higher elevation. So again, it's this fast moving energy that just needs an outlet. And they're sociable energy. They're sociable by nature. So again, Aries are very sociable by nature as well. I would say Aries is pretty extroverted energy as well. So they work really well together in that sense, where it's Aries brings the passion, the motivation, the confidence, and the 5 energy brings the desire to explore, to go on an adventure, to travel, to see new things, to expand the horizon. And again, just to be adaptable, to be creative, artistic, and again, quick thinking. So it's just, they do complement each other in that way. It's Aries will fuel the 5 to do whatever, idea comes up, to follow it with passion, to follow it with drive, to be direct in that approach, right? And I believe that Aries too, because Aries can be very focused energy if they set their mind to something, and that focus helps the 5 energy, because we'll see when I go into the negative traits of the 5, there can be this lack of focus. There's like 5 energy, again, because it's such fast moving energy. It wants to take on everything. It wants to just, devour everything. And like, that's why moderation is such a big key for 5s, to stay balanced, because 5s can fall into extremes very, very easily. Again, they want to experience life with all of their senses. And Aries sort of gives them the drive and the motivation to do that. So they actually assist each other very, very well. It's a kind of a balancing act though, because again, both can fall to the extremes. Both Aries and 5 energy can fall to the extremes pretty quickly. So they just need to kind of make sure that they stay balanced, right? And maintain that moderation. And the 5 gives Aries enough air to fuel it, and the fire doesn't get out of control, right? So it is kind of a balancing act. But when we look at the negative traits of the 5, we see they can be dissatisfied very easily bored, restless, making decisions without enough forethought. So again, they can be very, very impulsive, and they can be impulsive with a lot of things. So again, they get their hands in a lot of different pots. So they're unable to finish what it is that they started, which they end up having like a million different things that they've started just sitting there, and then they become really frustrated or overwhelmed by that energy. And that can create like moodiness and temperamentalness. And so that's some of the lower traits of the 5. When we see that coupled with the lower energy of Aries, with that lack of patience, mood alteration, quick to anger, and then we get the moody and temperamentalness of the 5, again, that fire and that air just come together and becomes like an explosion. So it can kind of be a little bit challenging if you are a 5 with a lot of Aries, and if you're in your lower expression, because again, that fire energy is, if you are in your lower expression of your 5 and you're starting a bunch of different things, the Aries energy is giving you the motivation and the drive to start all those things, to be motivated to have your hands in 1,000 different pots, and your energy becomes very, very scattered. Now you have all this energy, like sprawn out against, on the floor, and you don't know what to do with it. You can't sort of bring the bunnies back. And so it just becomes this very like chaotic energy. And then with that fire energy of Aries, you become more determined, but your determination is sort of focused in those lower traits. And it just becomes very, very chaotic. Another negative trait of 5 is that they become sort of unwilling to listen to other people's ideas. And so they can be very unconventional in their thoughts and their actions, similar to like Aquarius. And so again, if you are sort of fueling that with that Aries determination and passion and martyrdom, right? It just becomes like this, I just picture like this combustible situation where the fire, there's so much air and there's so much fire that it just becomes an explosion. So basically, when you're in your lower expression of Aries and your lower expression of 5, it can be very, very challenging. But just like I will say in every single reading, our lower expressions are a part of who we are. We came here with these lower expressions. We're not meant to completely extinguish them or diminish them to the point where we don't recognize that side of ourselves. We're meant to experience them, learn whatever we're meant to learn from them. And then when we fall into those lower expressions, we will have the tools and the capability to pull ourselves into a higher elevation. So you can see when you've fallen into a lower expression because of the way that you feel, right? Because again, the thing that just keeps coming to mind when I think of lower energy, Aries with lower energy 5, is chaos. Just that explosive energy of like, you just have all of this energy that needs to be moved, and it's either stagnant or it's just going in a million different directions, and you don't know how to contain it. And so that can be the challenge of Aries and 5 energy. But again, when you're in your higher expression, it's actually very, very complementary. It's very beautiful. That 5 energy fuels the Aries fuels the 5, and it ignites that passion within the 5 to be able to explore, to be the visionary, to, to be versatile and tolerant and creative and artistic and all of those things, sociable, all of those things, and to move that energy much more freely. So highest expression, complementing, very complementary. Lower expression, very chaotic, very combustible, but nothing you can't work with. Your soul came here for a reason, to be, Aries and a 5 energy, to accomplish whatever it is that your soul chose to accomplish in this lifetime. You needed those elements, and you just need to learn to work with them. There's nothing wrong with those lower expressions. You just need to learn to work with them to the best of your ability, and make them work for you. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much, and I will see you again soon. Taurus, if you're a Taurus, sun, moon, or rising, and also a life path number 5, then this reading is for you. I'm going to look at the higher and the lower expressions of Taurus, as well as the life path number 5, so you can see how these energies complement one another, as well as can be a little bit challenging when they come together. So let's look at Taurus. Taurus is, of course, an earth sign. And when Taurus is in its highest expression, we see a very strong desire for social and corporate stability. Stability being the key word with Taurus. They like extravagance. They like the finer things in life, and they're willing to work for them and create that environment. They can become very content, but that contentment is something that really fuels their energy, right? Like really drives them. They enjoy that contentment and security and stability, right? It's a very dependable energy, and they can be very dedicated in life and love, which is a very beautiful thing. You just think of this very earth-grounded energy with Taurus when it's in its higher expression, that's willing to put in the work to acquire those things. When Taurus is in its lower expression, we see stubbornness, not willing to be risky or to leave their comfort zone. Again, they become very sort of stuck in their ways. They can become predictable and rigid in their beliefs and actions. And they can become perfectionists to the point where it becomes debilitating. Now, when we look at the higher and lower expressions of the 5, we see the positive expressions are somewhat, they're a little different. They're actually very different. You see a little bit of push-pull here. So if you're a Taurus and you're a 5, you're going to feel push and pull. But let's look at a few things first. So 5 energy is mostly extroverted energy. It's a very fast-moving energy. They're very fast thinkers. They have a lot of energy within that needs to be constantly moved. So for 5s, if you're a 5 life path, or you have a lot of 5s within your chart, it's very beneficial for you to move your body in some way, whether that's walking, running, lifting weights, whatever you're physically capable of doing each and every day, like to physically move the energy, because it's such fast moving energy. It needs to be moved. 5 energy is similar to Gemini. It is an air sign. Okay, and so when we look at the positive traits of 5, we see just sort of this huge expansive energy, again, very fast moving. It's versatile, it's very adaptable, it's very tolerant energy, it's creative, it's artistic, it's quick thinking, it's eager to learn. 5 energy loves to travel and explore and be expansive. They have a difficult time being confined or restricted. If you're a 5 and you are sort of the extreme confinement for a 5 would be like being in jail or something like that, right? Where you are literally confined. That would be like way in your shadow energy of 5. Just because that energy needs to be expansive. It needs to explore. It needs to travel. It's the visionary. It's a great communicator. Again, 5 energy likes to be constructively busy, not just busy to be busy, right? Like their mind needs to be, remember, it's an air sign, so it's mental. It's their mind likes to be, again, constructively busy, right? And then I would also take that as far as to say the physicality of it, just moving that energy, doing something to move it. So when we look at the positive traits of Taurus and the positive traits of the 5, we can see how they could complement each other, right? But there's also some push and pull there. Taurus, again, is very grounded energy. It's an earth energy. So that strong desire for social and corporate stability, right, can almost feel like confinement to the 5. 5s, you would often see they switch jobs often. They're, very creative. They're the ones who, maybe own their own business and they're like an artist or something like that, where they set their own hours. They have a lot of creative freedom. And so it's not that a 5 can't be successful in a corporate environment or, socially or whatever. They would be very successful socially. 5 energy is very sociable. It's a very sociable energy. But when we start talking about the security, the dependability, the stability of Taurus in its highest expression, it's dedication in life and love. Not that 5s aren't capable of those things, but they have to find a happy medium. They have to find a balance. Like 5s are more of an independent energy where they would like, they can be in a very reliable partnership, but that partner has to be able to allow them to have freedom and space and movement. They would start to feel very stagnant and frustrated if they are too confined, and that includes in relationships. So again, you can kind of see if you have really any of the earth elements like Taurus, Capricorn, you would start to, in Virgo, right, you would feel this sort of push and pull energetically, because the 5 is so expansive, wants to be free, wants to roam, wants to create, and the earth energy is more grounded. It's more stabilizing. Now, I will say the Taurus energy, the earth energy assists the 5 in finding that balance, in that in sort of finding the moderation, right? It helps to ground that air. It helps to create a more stable environment, because again, in the lower expression of 5, we see, unable to finish what they start, scattered energy, their hands are in a million different places. And so the earth energy does assist that. It does calm that a little bit. And for whatever reason, your soul was like, we need to be grounded as well as expansive in this lifetime. So let's bring in some Taurus, let's bring in some 5 energy so that we can make this happen, right? So whatever it is that your soul came here to accomplish in this lifetime, you needed to have these elements. You needed to be grounded in your work and focused, as well as expansive and free. And so, able to express yourself creatively. So they do work together really, really well, but it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to get to that happy medium, because again, that 5 energy just wants to do everything in a big way, and usually in an extreme way. So nothing that you can't work with. I'm just saying it's going to feel a little uncomfortable, right? Because it literally feels like 2 different parts of yourself, kind of like one wants to be really free, the other wants to be really stable, so you just kind of got to find your medium. And then when we get into the negative traits, that's just compounded even more. Then you're really going to feel that push and that pull, because lower expression of Taurus is very, again, predictable, rigid, in their comfort zone, very set in their ways, very stubborn. Whereas, 5 in their lower energy is just falling into extremes in a big way, unable, just their energy is all over the place, making decisions without forethought, so a lot of impulsivity, easily bored, restless. So again, you can see how it's like you've basically, when you've got your lower expressions of Taurus and the 5, you are in 2 polarities, and you have to find your center. You have to do that even in the higher expressions like we talked about. But when you're in those lower expressions, it's going to feel like you are 2 different people in the same body. It's going to just feel really, really like this push and pull. I can say this from experience, because I'm a 4 life path with Capricorn energy, Capricorn sun, and I've got a million 5s in my chart. So I'm pretty much also a 5. So I definitely know that feeling of that push and that pull, and you just constantly go through life trying to find that happy medium. And when you're in your lower expressions, it can feel so uncomfortable. Just like you aren't meant to be in this body. I don't know. It's just hard to describe. But, if you're a Taurus and you're a 5, I would imagine you probably know what I'm talking about. But again, that grounded energy assists in ways that it's meant to. So work with it the best that you can. And it's really a beautiful thing. When you find that medium, when you find that happy center, that balance, you will see these energies work for you in ways that you never expected them to, and in very powerful, beautiful ways. So it's not a curse. It's definitely, your soul was very methodical and very strategic in choosing these energies. So I hope this was helpful for you, at least just to kind of see the lower and the higher expressions and kind of what you're contending with, what you're working with. None of it is bad. None of the lower or the higher expressions are obviously, none of them are bad. Your soul chose to come here. This is all part of you. You just need to learn to work with the energies so that they can work for you. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. Gemini, if you are a Gemini sun, moon, or rising, and you are also a life path number 5, then this reading is for you. So you're going to see a lot of similarities between your higher expressions and your lower expressions of both Gemini and the 5, because the 5 is the astrological connection is Gemini for the 5. So, but there are ways that obviously these energies work really, really well together. They're basically the same energy. But also how they sort of work against each other or can kind of slow each other down, right? So let's take a closer look at the higher and lower expressions of both. So Gemini is, of course, an air sign. When it's in its highest expression, Gemini is very adaptable, easygoing, intelligent, outgoing and social, perceptive, analytical and inquisitive, and highly passionate about whatever they set their mind to. When we look at the lower expressions of Gemini, we see indecisiveness, impulsivity, unreliability, difficulty in planning, a tendency to be inconsistent in many areas of their life. Now, when we look at the 5 energy, we see this is a mostly extroverted energy, and I would say Gemini probably is too. The astrological connection is, of course, Gemini, so 5 energy is also considered an air element. When we look at the positive traits of the 5, we see so many similarities. Versatility, humorous, tolerant, creative, artistic, quick thinking, eager to learn, loves to travel and explore, the visionary, good communicator, likes to be constructively busy, and very, very social. And so it can also be drawn to writing or teaching, which I like that too. That's something to mention. When we look at the negative traits of the 5, we see, again, a lot of similarities. It's basically the same energy. Dissatisfied very easily bored, restless, makes decisions impulsively, unwilling to listen to others, moody and temperamental, unable to start what it's finished. So when we look at the higher expressions of Gemini, we can see how they feed into each other, because again, it's basically like the energy is compounded. Like your soul was like, okay, we need to achieve whatever it is that we want to achieve, and we need to do it. We need to do it through travel, through exploration, through learning, through teaching, through writing, through being social, through tolerance, whatever the case may be. But we need to make sure that we do this. And so we're going to be 5s as life paths, and then we're also going to have all this Gemini energy behind us to assist, right? And you could even go, vice versa and say you came as a Gemini and you also came as a 5 to support that Gemini energy, right? They just complement each other obviously very, very well. It's the same energy. So you can see how it pushes you to be even more extroverted in your work. Obviously, if you have a lot of Gemini and 5 energy, I would anticipate that you're probably in some kind of, or going to be in some kind of, profession where you are teaching other people about something, you are writing, you like to be busy, but not just for the sake of being busy. You're sociable. You probably have you're probably eager to learn. You probably, whether that's metaphysically or, more traditionally in like a, higher education environment. all of those things. So it's like your soul came here and was like, yeah, we need to do whatever this is. And we need these energies to be able to do it, to accomplish it. So they're beautiful energies together. Very beautiful. Now, obviously the issue is that there is not a lot to sort of ground all that air energy. And so 5 energy can be very expansive. It can fall into extremes very, very easily. One of the sort of key words for 5 energy is moderation, doing things in moderation, because 5 energy just wants to experience everything with all their senses. And they can easily fall into, living in excess or even living in deprivation. They will go to an extreme. And usually if they go into like deprivation or like solitude or something like that, they're usually in their shadow, because 5 energy just at its core is just a very fast moving, expansive energy. So you can see how that air energy of the 5 and the air energy of the Gemini feed each other so well. It's almost like a sounding board of energy where they're just like so much feeding into each other that it would be very easy to fall into extremes. So I would say one of the challenges of even your higher expressions of being Gemini and 5 energy is to find that moderation, to make sure that, you'll know when, because you can be in both higher expressions and still feel uncomfortable as a 5 or Gemini if you are falling into an extreme. And so if you start to feel like you're if you start to feel uncomfortable, it could be that you've fallen into a lower expression. That's fine. But it could be that you're falling into an extreme just because those energies feed into each other so strongly. And you just need to find your center. That's the biggest thing with 5 energy, is finding that balance, right? Especially if you have more air energy coming in to sort of feed into that. Now, the negative traits, of course, again, basically mirrors of each other, indecisiveness, unable to finish what they've started, making decisions without a lot of forethought, so impulsivity. So again, and then getting frustrated with yourself because you're doing that, all that stuff, right? And so again, if you're in the lower expression of Gemini and the lower expression of the 5, it can just feel like you are a hamster on a wheel and you are getting nowhere. Like you just basically are just impulsive to the extreme. You are making decisions just by the seat of your pants. Nothing seems to stick. It can just feel like you're turning those wheels and getting absolutely nowhere, and then getting incredibly frustrated because of the lack of momentum. And it can also feel like you're like, I do all this work, I put all this energy into this, and it's not working out, and you can get really frustrated by that. But it's important to look at, are you in your negative traits, right? Are you easily bored, right? Are you starting something and then giving up on it 2 seconds later because it didn't, give you instant gratification? Because life doesn't work that way generally, right? So like, are you becoming restless? Like if you have a sense of restlessness about you, that is, you could be in your lower energy, or that could be a sign for you that you are being restricted or confined in some way. And your soul is like, no, we need to live outside the comfort zone. Like 5 energy is not meant to be comfortable in this lifetime. There's just too many, constant changes and fluctuations. And when they start to get restless, it's usually that there's something else going on. But anyway, so you can see how that Gemini energy of the lower expression and the 5 energy of the lower expression just really, again, fuel each other to the point of it can feel like an internal storm, like an internal hurricane. And you're just, the image that keeps coming up is just a hamster on a wheel, just getting absolutely nowhere, but putting in all this energy and all this effort. So when you feel that way, it really comes back to moderation, balance, and focus. Those are probably the 3 words that I would say if you were a Gemini and a 5. Moderation, focus, and I can't remember what the other word was. Moderation and focus are the 2 that you should remember. Obviously balance too, if I didn't say that. But anyway, definitely moderation and focus. So that should be your mantra as a Gemini and a 5. But, your soul came here to really accomplish something with those energies. So it's just up to you to figure out what that is and to work with these energies to the best of your ability and to recognize when you fall into your lower traits. And again, the lower traits are not a bad thing. They're a part of us. We're going to experience them throughout our lifetime. We just need to learn to work with them, to recognize them, and to see how we feel when we're in them, right? And what kind of outcome are we seeing by being in that energy, right? If you're a hamster turning the wheel and you're not getting anywhere, but you can see the goal, but you're not getting to the goal, what's holding you back from that? Is it some of that, giving up too quickly? Is it not being able to plan enough, or being too moody or temperamental, or unable to finish what you've started, or, whatever, or difficulty planning, all those things? Those traits are not going to go away. They are part of who you are, right? And who you were meant to be. But again, they're also meant to show us something. And so, don't beat yourself up if you're in your lower trait. Just figure out which trait it is, what's holding you back, and how you need to transmute that energy and work with it to move above it, right? To one of your higher elevated traits. So I hope that this was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. Cancer, if you are a sun, moon, or rising sign Cancer, and you are also a life path number 5, then this reading is for you. So we're going to look at the higher and the lower expressions of both Cancer and life path number 5 so that you can gain a better understanding of how those energies work together and how they may potentially work against each other, and what you'll need to do to figure that out, right? And how to work with it. So Cancer energy, of course, Cancer is a water sign. When it's in its highest expression, we see this very nurturing, sensitive, compassionate, sort of security-seeking. Cancers generally like to have, a solid family environment, a home, like their home is their castle. They like that sense of security, basically. They often seek deep, intimate connections. They can be very loyal and protective, and they're very intuitive and psychic. When they're in their lower expression, we see this energy of like being very withdrawn, overly emotional, sort of moody, over sentimental, vindictive. They can be lacking emotional maturity, basically. Now, when we look at the 5 is mostly extroverted energy. I would say that Cancer feels a little bit more introverted. But 5 energy is more extroverted. So already we can kind of see a little bit of a push-pull here. You've got this more sort of introverted, security-seeking energy of Cancer, and then this more extroverted, faster-moving energy of the 5. 5 energy is mostly associated with like Gemini. That's the astrological connection. And so it is considered an air sign. So we have air and water being Cancer. When we look at the 5 positive traits, we get this energy of, again, this very fast moving energy. So I will say that if you're a 5, you probably need to be doing things to move your body, move the energy each and every day, because you just have so much energy and it's going to be very fast moving. You need to find a way to like move it so it doesn't get stagnant. They're very versatile, very humorous. They have a good sense of humor. They are very tolerant individuals when they're in their highest expression. They're creative, they're artistic, they can be very quick thinking. Like I said, it's a very quick energy. They're eager to learn. They love to travel and explore. They're the visionary. They're good communicators. They like to be constructively busy. And they're also very sociable. It's very sociable energy, 5s. So again, you can kind of see like 5 energy is like this big, expansive exploratory energy that just wants to be free, that wants to be, experiencing life with all of its senses. Then you have Cancer, who is very sensitive. It's a very sensitive energy, right? It's very empathic, intuitive, psychic, but it also likes that security. So it's kind of like, again, you may feel a little bit of push-pull when you're in both your higher and lower expressions of Cancer and your 5. Just because 5 is more independent, wants to be, again, expressive and expansive. And Cancer energy is more like home life, family, partnerships, community. So it's more security seeking. So again, you may, even in your higher expressions of Cancer and the 5, feel a little bit of push-pull there. But again, your soul is very, is infinitely brilliant, right? It knows what it's doing. And so there was a reason why you came here with these very psychic, intuitive, sort of security-seeking energies of the Cancerian energy, but then also this very expansive energy of the 5. You are meant to, in this lifetime, find your balance, find that healthy balance so that you can incorporate all those energies, right? And work with them. And then depending on what the rest of your chart looks like, I would assume with Cancer energy, you probably have other energies that would assist you. Like you probably have some 6th energy throughout your chart. But with that 5 energy and that Cancer energy, even in your higher expressions, you're going to feel some push and pull. You're going to feel a little bit like, one side of you wants to do one thing, expressive and expansive, and the other side wants to just stay home, watch a movie, Netflix and hang out, whatever, right? Very family oriented. So you may even find that like one of the challenges in your experience is you want to be like a homebody. You want to be at home with family or feel secure, but your career or something that you feel very passionate about is pulling you out into the external world, is like almost forcing you to be expressive and expansive. But it's very possible to find your balance with these energies. And then when you do, it's going to be just a very holistic experience for you. So it's very beautiful complementary energy if you can find that balance. The negative traits or lower traits of the 5 are just being dissatisfied, easily bored, restless, impulsivity, very moody and temperamental, and unable to finish what they've started. So if we take that moodiness and that temperamentalness of the negative traits of the 5 with the moodiness and oversensitivity of an emotional immaturity of Cancer, that just creates like a very sort of victim mentality, like the world is against me, and like just sort of retaliation and just like, vindictiveness of trying to get back at those who have upset you or whatever. And it just creates sort of a very toxic environment. It's that situation where your emotions are in control of you and you have no control or concept of your own emotions or how to work with them. So that can obviously be pretty debilitating. But we also have this energy of like the 5 getting very restless with being confined or stabilized, and that Cancerian energy wanting to be that in that stability and that security, right? And wanting to feel sort of sheltered in a way, especially in that lower expression, they become very withdrawn. So again, this is where you're really going to see that like push-pull between and sort of feel like, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where you're like almost like two energies, 2 polarities within the same body, and you have to find the happy medium, which is basically the case. Because again, that 5 energy is going to be easily frustrated by being stagnant or stuck, and the Cancer energy kind of thrives in that environment of feeling secure and nurtured or whatever. And again, 5 energy is a little bit more independent and needs its freedom. So you can just kind of see, like I said, you just kind of will have this feeling of like, sometimes when you're in your lower expression, especially, that you're just like an alien within your own body, and you have to figure out like how to work with the energies and a happy medium. But again, once you can do that, it will harmonize your energy, right? You'll find your balance, you'll be able to work with the energies, and you will be able to accomplish whatever it is that your soul signed up for in this lifetime with these energies. So, but it helps to understand what the negative traits are, even though I think even in your positive traits, you're going to have some push-pull there. But in your negative traits, then you're really getting stuck. You're really getting to the point, and then you're getting overly frustrated by being stuck, right? So it's just, again, just figuring out how to work with those energies. There's nothing wrong with negative traits of the sign, right? Those are a part of who we are. We came here to experience them. We just need to learn to work with them, and so that we don't get stuck within those lower traits, so that we can use them to assist us in elevating ourselves higher, if that makes sense. So hopefully this is helpful in just kind of giving you an idea of what those higher and lower expressions are, and maybe why you feel that push-pull even when you're in your higher expression. It's not a bad thing. It's really like this part of your challenge, I think, and part of your test is to learn how to find that balance and figure out what that is for you and how to work with it and how to make the Cancerian energies and the 5 energies work for you so that you can be the very best version of yourself, right? So I hope this was helpful. Thanks so much for listening. Take care. Leo, if you are a Leo sun, moon, or rising, and you are also a life path number 5, then this reading is for you. We're going to take a look at the higher expressions of Leo, the lower expressions of Leo, as well as the higher and lower expressions of the 5, so that you can kind of see how these energies work together, as well as they could potentially sort of work against each other or create challenges. So Leo energy is a fire sign. When Leo is in its highest expression, we see natural born leaders. We see this unmatched sort of drive, this compassion and big-hearted energy. Leos can be very, very generous with their time, energy, and money. They can be very self-assured, which is not an egotistical thing. It's just they are very confident within their work, what they put forth. They just feel very solid within who they are when they're in their highest expression. When Leo is in their lower expression, we see this sort of egoic energy, very stubborn, very arrogant, dominating, possessive, jealous, pompous, and very self-absorbed, okay? So when we look at the energies of the 5, now 5 is mostly extroverted energy. I would say Leo feels more extroverted as well. It's an extroverted energy. It's a very fast-moving energy. 5 energy, if you are a 5, you probably, if you're not already, need to be doing some kind of physical activity every single day to like move that energy, because it's not really, if you sort of have a desk job and you're a 5, that energy is gonna start to stagnate really quickly if you're not doing something to move it, not just like spiritually, or mentally, but like physically. It's just a lot of energy. It's kind of similar to like Aries in that way. But it's a very fast-moving energy. It's an air element. It's the astrological connection to 5 is mostly associated with Gemini. And so when we look at the positive traits of the 5, we see this very versatile energy. They're very humorous. They have a good wit about them. They're very tolerant individuals. They are creative, artistic. They like to experience life with all of their senses. They're the freedom seekers. They want to travel, explore, be the visionary. They're great communicators. They're quick thinkers. They're eager to learn. They like to be constructively busy, not just busy for the sake of being busy, but they like to be constructively busy and to see that their efforts create something tangible, right? They're a very sociable energy. 5s are also more independent in nature. However, you can obviously have a very solid relationship with a 5. You just need to be able to give them their room to breathe, their room to move. They need to feel freedom, right? When we look at the negative traits of the 5, we see this energy of like being dissatisfied very easily, easily bored, restless. That's probably the key word right there, is restless. They don't like to feel confined or restricted. And so when they do, they can get very, very restless. They often will make decisions without enough forethought. So very impulsive when they're in their negative traits. They can be moody and temperamental, and they can sort of just give up on things before they even have a chance to get started if there's not that instant gratification. So just an inability to finish what they start, which can be frustrating for other people who are involved in that situation, right? So when we look at the positive traits of Leo and the 5, we see this Leo fire energy really complementing the 5 energy, giving it, that leadership, the leadership energy that maybe the 5 doesn't have. Now I say that because like 5 energy can be so big and expansive that it's hard for 5s to focus their energy they are often like the Jack or Jill of all trades without, like they kind of know a little bit about everything, but they're not an expert in anything, if that makes sense, because their energy is just so fast moving. They just want to experience everything. And the Leo energy will sort of bring in that leadership energy and that focus and that drive, right? Like the Leo energy has so much drive. And so it will really sort of bring in that fire. Same thing with like Aries. Like Aries is a good complementary energy to 5 as well, because it gives it that drive. It gives it that focus. So same thing with Leo. If you're a Leo, sun, moon, rising, and you're also a 5, that fire energy is coming in to assist the 5 in keeping that big expansive energy, but focusing it on something. And man, when you focus that much energy on something big is going to come from that, right? And you think of Leo is like, typically you think of Leo as like in the spotlight, or like, just being seen by a lot of people, or just really expansive energy. And that is 5 energy. So you get that fire behind it. You get that Leo, lion energy behind that 5. Your soul came here to accomplish some big things and to focus all of that big energy of the 5 into something powerful. So whatever that may be. And the Leo energy also, complements the kindness and the humor and the sociability of the 5 with that compassion and big-hearted, generous energy. So it's actually really, really complementary energy to have Leo as well as 5 energy, and especially that confidence and that self-assuredness, right? It's like it just fuels that air of the fire, right? Or that air of the 5 to accomplish whatever it is, to travel, to explore. It gives that 5 the confidence to be able to do that and to maybe take some risks. Now, 5 energy will sometimes have an issue with falling into extremes, right? Because again, it's just bigger than life energy, and they want to experience everything. Like, they came here to live life and experience life. And sometimes that can create a situation where you're sort of living in excess, or or you are on the other polarity, other shadow side of things, and you're like, you're living in deprivation, right? You're depriving yourself, you're confining yourself, or you're making choices that confine you, right? So anyway, when we look at the negative traits of the 5, we see, again, dissatisfied, easily bored, restless, making those decisions without forethought, being moody, temperamental, and unable to finish what they start. So then you couple that with the arrogance, the dominating energy of the Leo, the ego, the stubbornness, all those things, that just compounds that 5 energy to where it pushes it into one of the polarities, right? It creates the drive and the fire behind it, but that drive and that fire is pushing you into a lower trait of yourself and into a polarity, right? To where you would become very restless or dissatisfied or whatever the situation may be. And so where in the higher elevation, Leo is fueling the 5 to, be expansive, travel, go out there, explore, be the visionary, do all those things. And it gives it the confidence. In the lower expression, it's really fueling that fire, that air, I guess. I guess the 5 is also fueling the fire of the Leo to just like, I don't know, it just feels like very sort of challenging energy when you're in your lower expressions and you have Leo and a 5. Because it's almost like, again, the fire energy is fueling the 5 to do things that maybe it wouldn't typically do. And what just kind of comes to mind is like, one of the lowest expressions of a 5 would be like incarceration, because that is like the ultimate confinement for a 5, right? It's like you are confined literally to a space, and there's something there to be learned, obviously, but that would be like a lower expression of a 5, is being confined to where they physically cannot move or leave or do, be expansive and accomplish what they want to accomplish. So anyway, my point being A lower expression of Leo has the potential to really come in and just create this forest fire of, arrogance and being dominant and making those decisions out of possessiveness or egotistical energy, or being driven by your ego, and getting you in situations that your 5 energy is just going to implode with. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, as the higher expression, Leo 5 work beautifully together. It's a very powerful energy coming together, very powerful. When it's in its lower expression, I think you have a lot to work with, right? Like you have a lot to work through, and you really have to be careful about not bringing too much air to that fiery lower expression environment of the Leo, because it can cause, obviously, like just this combustible energy, which can be it can be very challenging. So anyway, your negative traits are obviously not a bad thing. We all have them. They're a part of us. We're meant to learn something from them. They're meant to show us something. Our soul came here to experience them for a reason. So they're not a bad thing, but we just need to learn how to work with them, how to move beyond them, how to transmute them, and elevate ourselves into our higher traits, right? We'll fall in and out of those higher and lower traits throughout our lifetime. It's just up to us to figure out how to find the balance, move beyond those energies and not stay in them too long. But like I said, really powerful, that's probably the best word, is just powerful energies for the higher expressions of Leo and 5s together. I think they work really well together if you can figure out how to work with that energy and harness that energy to work for you. Wow, that's really strong energy. So in a good way. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. Virgo, if you are Virgo, sun, moon, or rising, and you are also a life path number 5, then this reading is for you. We're going to look at the higher and lower expressions of both Virgo and the 5 so that you can see how these energies both complement each other and also sort of work against each other. So let's take a look at Virgo first. So Virgo is an earth sign, and when Virgo is in its highest expression, we see sort of this humbleness about them. We see practicality. They're very industrious. They're very kind and empathetic. They can be very methodical, and they're quick thinkers. They can also be very hard workers and responsible, and they bring their big hearts to every situation. When Virgo is in its lower expression, they can be very overly critical, not only of others, but of themselves as well. They can be perfectionist and overly systematic and rigid in their thinking and their actions. They can also be pessimistic and stubborn, as well as overly meticulous. And so think about those energies as we move into talking about the energies of the 5, and you will see how, and we'll talk about how they can work together, but also how these can feel like very polarizing energies to have, okay? But also good energies, so bear with me. So 5 energy is mostly extroverted energy. I would say Virgo energy overall feels more introverted, but the 5 energy is definitely mostly extroverted. This is a very fast-moving energy. 5s want to experience life with all of their senses. They are the freedom seekers. It's very expansive energy, right? It's often very independent energy, but very expansive. Now, the astrological connection for 5s is Gemini. They're mostly associated with Gemini energy. And they're also an air element, similar to Gemini. When we look at the positive traits of the 5, we see versatility. They're very humorous and very social creatures. They are very tolerant. They are creative and artistic. They need that expansive space to use their creative expression, right? To be able to express themselves independently, creatively, have a voice. They are the visionaries, right? They just need to have that space to be able to be themselves. They are also quick thinkers, similar to Virgo. They are eager to learn, similar to Virgo. They love to travel and explore. They are great communicators, similar to Virgo. They like to be constructively busy. They're also, like I mentioned, very sociable. The negative traits of the 5, we start to see easily dissatisfied, easily bored, restless, impulsivity, moody and temperamental. And again, just being able to be sort of like flighty, where they're unable to commit, or they'll commit to something, but they're not able to deliver on it, right? They don't finish what they start. And now, if we look at the energies of the higher elevated energies of Virgo, as well as the higher elevated energies of the 5, we can see how the Virgo really helps to ground and calm some of that 5 energy, that more expansive, huge, like polarizing energy, I guess, of the 5. Like I said, moderation is always key with 5 energy. If you are ever in doubt, ask yourself, is there a way that I can find moderation in this? Because you're probably in some kind of extreme. 5 energy is very expansive energy. It's very fast moving. But the Virgo energy, that earth sign energy, will try to, will sort of ground you in a way, right? So you actually, when you're in your higher expression, you get this nice sort of innate balance within yourself, where it's like you can be very grounded, but you're also head in the clouds, right? And they kind of feed into each other. So you're not overly grounded, you're not overly, flying high. So it's very complementary. The Virgo energy will bring in the sort of practicality, the methodical processes, right? That they're both quick thinking energies, but the 5 may struggle with the focus, with being methodical, with planning, with those sort of things, with being a hard worker. Not that they're not, not that they won't, when they're in their higher expression, won't follow through on their commitments. They will, and they will do what they say they're going to do. But their whole thing is to work in purpose. They're not necessarily the overworkers. They're going to find their balance that feels good for them, type thing, which is a good thing. It's a good quality to have, right? Because the earth signs can sometimes tend to be those perfectionists and workaholics and like work themselves to death, right? So the 5 energy brings in a beautiful balance with that, where it's like, yeah, we're going to like put in what we say we're going to put in. We're going to show up and give 100%, but we're not going to, kill ourselves for this type thing and overwork ourselves. But so again, they balance each other out very, very nicely. And both are quick thinking energies, but the Virgo energy will bring in that practicality, will bring in that planning, that methodical thinking for the 5. Because again, 5 is more expansive. It's more creative in its processes, where Virgo can sometimes be a little bit more practical. And so again, they just balance each other out very, very nicely when you're in your higher expression. And so you can see with the earth energies, couple of things. One, your soul obviously came here because it needed to accomplish something very specific. So it needed those earth energies to ground it, to get you to be focused, right? But then you also needed that real expansive, exploratory energy of the 5 to not be too rigid, to not be too confined, to not stay within that comfort zone, but to create something that's much bigger, right? So again, they're very, very complementary energy. With that said, I will also mention that even if you're in your higher or your lower expressions of the 5 and Virgo together, you're going to feel this like almost like constant push and pull. Like there's 2 sides of you and you don't understand why there's 2 sides of you. Like it's hard to kind of find that balance sometimes, because that 5 part of you is just going to want to be independent, just be free, be no restrictions, no confinement, no rules, no regulations. You know what I mean? It can fall into that more excessive living and excessive thinking. And then you got the Virgo, which is very grounded, very responsible, very hardworking, methodical, practical, right? So you've just got like these 2 sides of yourself that are just constantly like, where's our happy medium? And you'll find that, and when you find it, then you're going to make those energies work for you, and it's going to be super powerful. But you always kind of have this little feeling like, I don't understand my whole self, like there's just like this push and pull. but you'll find that balance. Now, when we look at the lower expressions, that even gets magnified even more. You just constantly feel in flux with yourself, right? Like, fives are very adaptable. They're used to change. Five energy is very, there's a lot of fluctuations. Things are constantly changing. There's lots of transformations. And fives just become very adaptable to that energy because they're just used to it. It just happens all the time. Things are constantly shifting. It's just such a fast moving energy. Whereas with Virgo, it's a much slower moving energy. It's very grounded energy. And so again, when you're in your lower expression of Virgo, things become overly systematic, overly rigid, overly confined, overly critical, right? Pessimistic, stubborn, meticulous, which is the complete opposite of the five lower expression. Five is like, gets really restless, gets really bored, dissatisfied really, really quickly. And you can see how they would like really fuel each other, but not in a great way. If you're very dissatisfied in your lower expression as a five, and then you're overly critical in your lower expression of Virgo, you're going to just constantly be berating and beating yourself up, right? And like, why aren't things moving faster? Why do I feel so stuck? Why do I hate my life? Why aren't things like not moving? You know what I mean? And you can just get really restless and just beat yourself up and be overly critical of not only yourself, but others. And it can really affect your relationships. It can affect your experience in a big way. So again, you will feel that sort of push-pull energy in the higher expression. Even when you find your happy medium, you'll still feel that because there's such like sort of polar opposite energies. But in your lower expressions, that is going to be incredibly challenging. I mean, it just is. You've just got these two very complete polar opposite energies in their lower expression working against each other is going to be challenging. So again, there's nothing wrong with the lower expressions of any of the signs, any of the numbers. They are part of who we are. We don't lose our negative traits by moving into our higher expressions, right? They're always there and we're meant to experience them. They're meant to teach us something. So when you're in those lower expressions of Virgo and the five, when it feels incredibly challenging, when it feels like, you just can't breathe because it's so challenging, you just need to take a closer look at what are these challenges trying to show me? Where am I really stuck? Like, why am I feeling restless? What's making me feel that way? Why am I being overly critical? What's making, what's going on at the core? And just really kind of work through those negative traits. Again, you're not alleviating them to the point where you're extinguishing them. They don't go anywhere. You still have them. They're still a part of who you are. But you're just not meant to like live there. You know what I mean? We're meant to figure out how to move above and beyond them, which you will do. And when you do that, you move into your higher expression. And then even when you dip into the lower, you're able to figure out how to move beyond it once more, and much more quickly, right? But even in your higher expressions, you're always going to feel a little bit of a push-pull here. That's just, I think, pretty standard with Earth energy and the five energy specifically. But like I said, when you can make those energies work for you, then you will be able to accomplish so much unrestricted, right? Like you'll create an environment for yourself that feels expansive and free, but also focused and dedicated, right? And so what you'll be able to accomplish will be just beautiful. So I hope this was helpful in kind of giving you an idea of the higher and the lower expressions of both energies so that you can kind of figure out when you're in your lower expression, maybe figure out what you need to do to transmute that energy, work with that energy the best of your ability, and move into those higher expressions. And then to even understand that even when you're in your higher expression as an earth energy and a five, there's going to be that push-pull. It's just going to be there. But you can make it work for you, right? It's a part of who you are for a reason. So use those higher expressions to propel you forward to achieve whatever it is that you choose to achieve. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. Libra, if you are a Libra sun, moon, or rising, and you are also a life path number 5, then this reading is for you. I'm going to take a look at the higher and the lower expressions of both Libra and the 5 energy so that you can kind of see how these energies are meant to work together and how they could kind of hinder each other and the challenges you may face. So Libra is an air element, When Libra is in its highest expression, we see the diplomat, we see the peacemaker, we see this fair, idealistic energy. Libras are very social and friendly when they're in their highest expression. They're intelligent, they like to find solutions to problems, and they often can do that with ease. They're often very forgiving, trustworthy, and tactful. They're able to express themselves in a way that will land in a way that people are drawn to and will integrate the information as opposed to becoming defensive. So again, very diplomatic in their approach. With the lower expressions of Libra, we see moodiness, dishonesty, indecisiveness, neediness, very egotistical, self-indulgent, untrustworthy, detached and unemotional, vain, and often selfish. When we look at the 5 energy is also an air energy. So these two energies are going to complement each other very, very well. But they can also work against each other, and we'll talk about that. The 5 energy is a very fast-moving energy. It's very fast-moving. So if you have 5 energy, you will more than likely need to do some kind of physical activity daily to move that energy. There's just so much coming through you so quickly. And so, again, it's an extroverted energy, similar to Libra. Libra feels more extroverted to me. 5 energy is definitely mostly extroverted, more extroverted. The astrological connection to the 5 is Gemini. So it's very similar to Gemini in its traits. When we look at the higher expressions of the 5, we can see how they work very beautifully with Libran energy. We have versatility. Their 5s can be very humorous, a good sense of humor, tolerant, creative and artistic, quick thinking. They are often eager to learn. They love to travel and explore. They're good communicators. They like to be constructively busy. And they're very sociable creatures. They like to be social. They usually have big networks. They're good at working with people in those environments. They also like to experience life through all of their senses. So they're the freedom seekers as well as similar to Sagittarius, I guess. They like to be they don't like to feel confined or restricted. So it's a very expansive energy. The key word with 5 energy is always going to be moderation and I guess balance, right? Like finding your balance through moderation, because 5s can fall into extremes very, very easily. Now, when we look at the negative traits of the 5, we see dissatisfied, easily bored, restless, making decisions without enough forethought, so impulsivity, being very moody and temperamental, and unable to finish what they started. And again, if it's you could also see a 5 when they're in their lower expression being very confined, right? Or stuck in their comfort zone. That just is not typical of a 5 energy when it's in its higher expression. Again, it likes to be expansive. Not to say that you can't be a 5 and have a very stable relationship or whatever the case may be. You can be. You just need to find a partner who will allow you to have those freedoms and that independence within the relationship to feel whole. So when we look at the higher expressions of both Libra and the 5, you can see how they assist each other. They work very beautifully together. The 5 energy is bringing that energy of relationships, being the peacemaker, bringing people together, being very idealistic, very social and friendly, finding solutions to things, very, very tactful and trustworthy. Those are beautiful energies to complement the 5 energy. Because remember, 5 energy is fast-moving energy. It likes to travel and explore and build relationships. 5 is probably, there's probably a lot of 5s who travel and just make so many acquaintances throughout the world, who they keep for throughout their life, right? Because again, it's just that beautiful energy. And then when you couple that with Libra energy, again, the relationship aspect comes in very, very strongly. So it's very possible that you were meant to be in some kind of field or do something where you are sort of that diplomat, you are bringing people together, and you've got that personality that's just so big and expansive, but also inclusive, that people are just drawn to you, right? And you almost create the environment that allows you to have that freedom of creative expression or whatever the case may be. So with the Libra energy, you're really kind of setting yourself up to be able to work really well with people, to be able to draw people in. So if you're a creative and you have Libra and 5 energy, you probably don't have a lot of challenges with getting people to notice you, to be drawn to you, to buy from you, or to be repeat customers, or whatever the case may be. It's just very, very beautiful complementary energy to have the Libra with the 5 energy. And again, because it's air energy, it's like the mind, thinking, communication, having that, like that, being that visionary, seeing things bigger than life, and being idealistic, and then figuring out ways to create that idyllic situation within the physical plane, right? So it's really beautiful energy. They really feed into each other. Where we start to have some concerns or some issues, right, where they kind of like feed into each other too much, I guess, to an extreme, is when we fall into the negative traits of both Libra and the 5. Again, Libra in its lower expression is so polarizingly opposite of its higher expression. We've got like the person who's going to be, dividing people, who's feeling the fire for conflict, who's dishonest, moody, indecisive, egotistical, untrustworthy, all of those things. And then we have the 5 who's just like restless, easily bored, dissatisfied, impulsive, moody, temperamental. And so you almost have like this vindictive, larger than life energy that's just like literally like a tornado moving through a space. And so it just kind of really, you can see how it's just too much air. You know what I mean? Like it's just too much, that it just it holds you back from focusing, from, having a vision, a goal, and actually being able to work with the people that you need to work with, in a harmonious way, to build those networks, to achieve whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, because you're starting something and then ending it and then getting overly frustrated and berating yourself or berating others, and it affects your relationships or whatever. So it's just like this really intense energy when you have the lower expressions of both Libra and the 5. Especially with the moodiness, the dishonesty, the egotistical, it's just, and really it could cause the 5 to be more confined and more withdrawn, which again is just so against what is part of your core. You're meant to be out there, be expansive, have that freedom, be independent through relationships, right? So you can kind of see how they feed into each other to keep you stuck, or to just cause damage, right? To just create chaos. So there's nothing wrong, after saying all that, there's nothing wrong with the lower expressions, right? Like they're not necessarily bad. They're a part of who we are, and we're meant to experience them and express them and figure out how to work with them. And then how to like move into our higher expression. Because again, when you're in your higher expression of Libra and your higher expression of 5, it just complements each other so well. It just feeds into one another. It's very complementary energy, and they drive one another basically. But again, when you fall into those lower expressions, that's when you start to see the chaos ensue. And so again, not a bad thing to be in those lower expressions. You're going to fall in and out of them throughout your lifetime. It's just important to recognize when you're in those lower expressions, recognize the effects that that's having on your experience, and try to figure out what it's trying to show you, what you can learn, and how you can move above and beyond it, right? Into those higher expressions, because that's where you're going to feel more comfortable. That's where you're going to feel like you're making headway, you're in purpose, you're doing what your soul came here to do, So yeah, so I hope this is kind of helpful to just kind of show you what some of those lower expressions are, the higher expressions, how they work together, how they can work against each other, and just to recognize when you're in those lower expressions so you can figure out how to, experience them and move beyond them. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. Scorpio, if you are a Scorpio sun, moon, or rising, and you are also a life path number 5, then this reading is for you. So we're going to take a look at the higher and the lower expressions of both Scorpio and the 5 so that you can see sort of how these energies complement each other as well as potentially work against each other and some of the challenges that may surface because of that. So Scorpio is a water sign. And when Scorpio is in its highest expression, we have these beautiful energies of ambition, determination, bravery, loyalty, honesty. They're very protective. They're very intuitive, psychic, independent thinkers. They are not easily influenced by outside influences. They can be assertive, emotionally, there's emotional depth to them, even if they don't show it, right? Like a lot of Scorpios, there's a lot going on under the surface, and they may have their poker face on and you would never know it. They're deeply sensitive and very passionate about whatever they, feel drawn to, put their mind to, that sort of thing. Now, when Scorpio falls into its lower expressions, we see stubbornness, manipulation, intolerance, jealousy, resentfulness, aggressiveness, vengefulness, possessiveness, lack of trust in others and themselves, lack of vulnerability, as well as moody and hypersensitivity. Now, when we look at the 5 energy is a very extroverted energy. It's fast-moving energy. So again, there's just like this constant flow of energy moving through 5s. It can feel very frenetic, I guess. So for 5s, if you're not already, you should maybe think about moving your body almost daily, because it will help to move that energy through you. And so it won't stagnate. There's something about like moving the energy mentally, spiritually, whatnot. But really for 5s, it's very similar to Aries energy, where it's just that physical movement, whatever you're capable of, will assist in moving that energy through you. Again, it's a mostly extroverted sign. It's the astrological connection to the 5 energy is Gemini. So it's also an air element to Gemini. So when we look at the positive traits of the 5, we see independence, versatility, tolerance, creative and artistic energy. 5 energy is very quick thinking. Again, it's got that fast energy. They're very eager to learn. They love to travel and explore. They're often the visionaries. They're good at communicating. They can be the risk takers, which is very similar to Scorpio, right? They like to live life through all of their senses. They like to experience life through all of their senses when they're in their highest expression. They like to be constructively busy. Again, constructively busy, not just busy for the sake of being busy. That would create them, that would make them feel probably pretty restless. And they're also very sociable. It's a very sociable energy. So again, if we look at the positive traits of Scorpio, we have ambition, determination, loyalty, the sort of independent thinker energy. And that ambition and that determination will assist the 5 in its focus, like becoming more focused, having that drive and that ambition to focus one's energy into their creative pursuits, their artistic pursuits, their, being that visionary and creating whatever that vision is. Sometimes with a 5 energy, because it's so big and expansive, it can easily fall into extremes, right? And then it gets sort of stuck. And so moderation is really key, but the scorpionic energy can assist in that moderation, in the sense that it keeps you sort of determined and focused and driven, right? With almost like this intensity and passion, right? It can keep the 5 on track to continue and complete what it started, to continue to move towards that vision, even without instant gratification. Again, because 5 energy is such fast moving energy, it expects everything around it to be moving just as quickly. And so again, if you don't see that instant gratification, it can be easy to be like, well, this isn't working, so next. And I think that Scorpio energy sort of ignites that passion and will assist the 5 in staying focused and staying on track, right? To accomplish whatever it is it wants to accomplish. I also love the independent thinking of the Scorpio, because for the 5, that just fuels that creativity. That just allows you to think outside the box without apology, right? Like, be yourself unapologetically. And if you're Scorpio, it's like you don't care what anybody else thinks. You want to create the life that works for you, and you're very independent in that thinking. You're not going to be easily influenced, and you're going to be very decisive in your actions. That's very beneficial energy to complement 5 energy, which can be a little bit, like I said, more expansive, more sort of just maybe indecisive at times, right? There's just so much going on with 5 energy. It's a very change oriented energy. There's a lot of flux, there's a lot of fluctuation, right? And 5s just have to be very adaptable. So again, that also complements Scorpio energy, because Scorpios are more of the risk takers. They like the intensity. They like to feel like they're living on the edge. And that just fuels 5 energy. 5 energy is very similar in that way. It likes to feel like it's doing something new and exploring something that's never been explored before. And so again, these 2 energies are almost like 2 kids sort of egging each other on to do the next best, biggest thing, the most daring each other to do, double dog dare you to do whatever. And it just sort of feeds that energy. There is, of course, the possibility that, again, you could sort of take it to the extreme, which I think that's one thing, even though it's not really a lower expression of either, but both Scorpio and the 5 energy can sort of take things to the extreme. And so again, moderation is just going to be key, especially if you're a Scorpio or a 5, even in your higher expression. Moderation is always going to be the key word. But I love how that Scorpio energy sort of protects that 5 energy, but also eggs it on. You know what I mean? It's just this very beautiful complementary energy. And it's also deep and very intuitive and psychic. And so again, that just fuels that creativity, that fuels that connection to the more mystical side of things, and brings in that element, which is beautiful, because it's not just about the practical or the tangible. It's sort of that unconventional thinking that 5s are so good at, right? Because again, they want to experience everything through all of their senses, the physical, the mystical, all of it. And the Scorpionic energy really assists with that. And so it's very beautiful energy. Now, when we look at the lower expressions, again, Scorpio, stubborn, manipulative, intolerant, lack of trust, lack of vulnerability, very moody and hypersensitive, resentful, aggressive. You couple that with the 5 negative traits, which are dissatisfaction, easily bored, restlessness, impulsivity, moody and temperamental, unable to finish what they started. You can just see how it can be this very depressive energy, or this very outwardly aggressive energy. And like that restlessness, that frustration can be fueled by the aggressiveness of the lower Scorpio. And it can just create sort of this tidal wave, right? Like when I think of like Scorpio, water energy in its lower expression is just like a monsoon with a tidal wave attached to it, right? Like a hurricane with a tidal wave. It's just very intense and can be really like destructive. And so again, you couple that with that restlessness, that dissatisfaction, and that moodiness and temperamentalness of the 5, it just really keeps you stuck, but in like an emotional hurricane. So it can be really challenging, and it can be very depressive. Like I said, it can kind of like depress the situation and make the 5 feel really restricted and like it's going to implode, right? And so again, 5 energy is so expansive and wants to be free, and it can often, if it feels too restless or confined, it can wreak a lot of havoc. Let's put it that way. And then you couple that with the already intense, aggressive energy of the lower Scorpio, and it can just be, it can be intense. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, like if there's 5s who have Scorpio and who are obviously 5s with Scorpio energy, who are in their lower traits and they commit, crimes, like aggressive crimes, and they find themselves imprisoned, which is the ultimate, confinement. And for a 5, that is a big lesson to learn, because 5 energy is so expansive. But you've got that aggressiveness and that sort of vindictiveness and manipulative energy of the lower Scorpio, coupled with that 5 that just can fall to the extremes. It can be really some intense energy there, the lower expressions. Now that I've scared you with all that, with all that like doom and gloom, I will say the lower expressions are not a bad thing, right? Like, obviously, if you're like stuck in them and you're like heavily into them, you can cause a lot of damage. But the lower expressions are just as much a part of us as the higher expressions of ourselves. We are meant to experience them. We're meant to understand them, to work with them, to experience and move through them. We're meant to learn something from those experiences. And so if you're in your lower expression and you're facing specific challenges associated with those lower expressions, you're meant to learn something from those challenges. So the key would be to take a closer look at, what are the challenges? What am I facing? How can I work with this energy? What do I need to do? This is uncomfortable. I need to make myself more comfortable. And I need to be able to work with these energies. And just go from there, right? But you're not meant to completely alleviate and get rid of the negative traits. They are a part of who you are. You're just meant to learn to work with them so that they work for you as opposed to work against you, and they don't hinder you, right? Because when you're in your higher expression of both your 5 and your Scorpio energy, it is going to be very powerful energy to work with. And you're going to have to continue to work to find that moderation and that balance. But when you do that, you're going to be a force to be reckoned with. It's very powerful energy on both sides. So you just got to pay attention to when you fall into those lower sides of yourself, and don't beat yourself up for it. Just recognize it, that, oh, I'm in my lower expression. I need to do something here. I need to make some adjustments. I need to see what this is trying to show me, learn the lessons that I'm meant to learn from this, and find a way to elevate my energy. So I hope this was helpful in kind of showing you kind of what you signed up for and what you may be working with. Like I said, very powerful energies with that Scorpio and that 5. I myself am a 5. I'm not a 5 life path. I'm a 4 life path, but I have a million 5s in my numerology report. And I'm also a Scorpio rising and a Scorpio north node. So I am definitely right there with you, working with these energies. And, it's not easy, especially with all of the changes that kind of come with both Scorpio and 5 energy. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, which is all about transformation, death and transformation, right? 5 energy is pretty much very similar. It's always about change and flux and new things happening and transformations. So it is a constant, it's a constant experience. And we just need to find that healthy, happy medium and work with the energy so that they work with us. And when we can do that, that becomes incredibly powerful. Okay, everyone, I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. Sagittarius, if you are a Sag, Sun, Moon, or Rising sign, and you are also a life path number 5, then this reading is for you. We're going to take a look at the higher and lower expressions of both the Sagittarius energy and the 5 energy so that you can see how these energies complement one another or work against one another and what you've sort of got to contend with in this lifetime. So let's take a look at Sagittarius first. So Sagittarius is a fire element. When Sag is in its highest expression, we see freedom lovers, very optimistic energy, honest, intelligent, a great sense of humor, fair-mindedness. They're spontaneous and fun. They're adaptable to change, very enthusiastic and generous, and a very playful energy. Now, when we look at the lower expressions of Sag, we see impatience, blunt without a filter. So they don't really care what they say or how they say it. And they can be very undiplomatic. Now, sometimes that's a good thing, you know where you stand, but sometimes you have to be able to read a room and know how to say something so that it's going to land in a way that it can be integrated and not, people don't become defensive. And so we see that sometimes in the lower expressions, that a little bit of non-diplomacy. They can sometimes make promises more on things that more than they can deliver, right? So that creates stress for both the Sag and the people associated with the Sagittarius. It can create anxiety and stress. They can be inconsistent, they can be emotionally distant, they can be reckless in their behavior, and they can bore easily. Now, when we look at the 5, what's interesting is there are a lot of similarities between Sagittarius and the 5 energy. They are different elements, but you can see a lot of similarities and how they would work together. I just get this image of like two kids, like either egging each other on or like, having like a snowball fight, right? Like just causing chaos. And so both good and, a little bit challenging. But they're very, very similar in their energies and their traits. 5 energy is a very fast moving energy. It's very fast. And so I've said this in every reading, but if you're a 5, it benefits you to be able to move your body in some way every day. There's just so much fast moving energy that's trying to move through you that physical movement, whatever that is for you, will just help to move the energy so that it doesn't stagnate. Because when it stagnates, you become restless, you become frustrated, you fall into those like negative traits. So you really do have to learn to work with the energy that's moving through you, not just spiritually and mentally, but through the physical aspect as well. So just a point. Now, 5 energy is mostly extroverted energy. The astrological connection is more associated with Gemini, which is also an air sign element. And so obviously 5 energy is an air element. But you think about Sagittarius as a fire element. So now you've got air feeding the fire, right? So, you can see why they work so well together. They definitely fuel into each other. 5 energy, when we look at the positive traits, we see this very independent energy that's a risk taker. It likes to live life through all of its senses, really experience life through all of its senses. It's very versatile, it's very humorous and got a good sense of humor and very fun energy, very similar to Sag. It's very tolerant energy. It's creative, it's artistic, it's quick thinking, it's eager to learn, loves to travel and explore. It can be the visionary. It's a great communicator, likes to be constructively busy, and a very sociable energy. So again, if we look at the positive energies of Sag, we have those freedom lovers, optimistic, honest, intelligent, good sense of humor, fair-minded, spontaneous and fun, very adaptable. 5 energy is a very adaptable energy. It has to be because there's just so much, it's such a fast moving energy that there's so much change, so much flux. And so it has to be easily adaptable. So when you couple that with the positive traits of the Sag, which is already adaptable to change and has sort of like, doesn't take things too seriously when it's in its higher expression, that's such good energy for 5s, like to couple that energy with 5 energy, because it keeps it sort of both 5s and Sag, when they're in their higher expression, are very in tune with their inner child, right? There's just that like playfulness, that jovialness, that eagerness to be expansive, to be free, to not be tied down, to just experience life again through all of their senses. And so the fire of Sag really fuels that energy of the 5 to keep it so it's not restrictive, to keep it so where it will, the 5 energy will feel comfortable stepping outside of its comfort zone, to explore, to create. Any Sagittarius that I know are usually very creative individuals. So again, you have that sort of enthusiastic, creative, fair-minded energy of the Sag just really feeding into the energy of the 5. And then, with 5 being an air energy, Sag being a fire energy, they work really well together. They fuel each other, right? So it's really beautiful. Now, if the fire energy becomes too much, it sort of suffocates the 5 energy, right? And that the lack of air creates issues for the fire, right? Or the 5 feeds into the fire energy of the Sag too much, and it creates like this combustible energy of just this fire out of control. So when we look at the negative traits of the 5, we see dissatisfaction, easily bored, very similar to the Sag energy. restless, making decisions without forethought, moody and temperamental, sort of flighty or not able to, make decisions, being inconsistent. And so again, it's almost like looking in a mirror and the energy is just compounded. So if you fall into your lower expressions of Sag and your lower expressions of the 5, you become this individual that's very difficult to work with, to have a relationship with, to, you just become like your own worst enemy in a sense, because you're indecisive, you're restless because of the indecisiveness, you're moody and temperamental because of it, you become emotionally distant, you've got reckless behavior. So it just becomes like this, again, just too much air and too much fire, which again just becomes like an atomic bomb. It just becomes like this forest fire out of control and just a lot of destruction in its path. Now, usually, you're not going to be fully in your -5, fully in your negative Sag. There's going to be like a little bit of your higher elevations and your lower elevations, and it'll just feel really uncomfortable, right? So you just need to figure out, am I in my lower expression? What do I need to do to sort of elevate beyond that lower expression so that I can work with these higher expressions of both Sag and the 5? Because in their higher expressions, like I said, they complement each other beautifully. It reminds me of like that really childlike energy that's like playful and wants to experience everything and very creative and fun loving and not overly serious but dedicated in its work and getting things done and creativity and creating things that people wouldn't have thought of because some people are too rigid in their thinking. But here's the 5 with a Sagittarius energy that's just thinking way beyond the box, right? Way unconventional. And so it creates things that people can use because it's unconventional thinking. It's really beautiful energy when it's in its higher expression. So again, it's just a matter of seeing like, am I in my lower expression? Am I being moody? Am I like indecisive? Am I not, standing behind my promises and following through? Is my energy scattered to the point where it's so fragmented I can't work with it? Am I feeling restless because of that? And so you just kind of have to look at those energies. Now, with all that said, the lower expressions are not a bad thing. We came here with those lower expressions to experience them. They're a part of who we are and they don't go away. We just need to learn to recognize them and to understand when they're throwing us into some kind of an extreme, especially as a 5. 5 energies struggle with moderation, with staying balanced. A lot of times, because it's such fast-moving energy and such larger-than-life energy, it will throw the 5 into an extreme, and it's just a matter of figuring out your balance, coming back to that balance. But when you're in your negative traits of Sag and the 5, it's much easier to fall into those extremes and just stay there. So nothing wrong with those negative traits. It's just a matter of recognizing when you've sort of dipped into them, and you'll do that throughout your lifetime. So it's not something you're going to fully alleviate. You just want to recognize them, learn how to work with them, right? So you can recognize, okay, I'm restless, I'm dissatisfied. What is going on? What is this challenge trying to show me? Why do I feel this way? What is it pointing to? Where does the adjustment need to be made, right? Or I'm being overly impatient. I'm being, overly emotionally distant, whatever the case may be, or I'm being reckless. Because, you can recognize that side of yourself because of how uncomfortable it feels, right? When you're in your higher expressions, it feels much more comfortable. Things begin to flow. Things work for you rather than against you. When you're facing those challenges and they feel uncomfortable, there's a challenge there that's meant to show you something. And more than likely, you are in one of your lower expressions. But again, that's a part of you. It's not going anywhere. You just need to learn how to work with it and find your happy balance, your happy medium. But overall, the Sag energy, I love it. I think it's such beautiful energy with the 5, just because, again, it just takes you back to sort of that sort of innocence that I think we all had when we were born, before society got a hold of us, to where it's like we are unconventional in our thinking, we're uninhibited, we're not easily influenced, we just see life through childlike eyes. We want to explore through that lens, and it just becomes, and then what we create through that lens is just beautiful. And so it's really very complementary, beautiful energy to have together. It's just when it falls into that lower expression that you can feel yourself getting really stuck, and it can be combustible. So I hope that helps, just kind of just giving you an overview of the higher and the lower expressions so that you know what you're working with, so that when those experiences show up for you and it feels challenging or uncomfortable, you can recognize it, be aware of it, and then start to make movement to figure out how to move into your higher elevation. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. Take care. Bye for now. Capricorn, if you are a Capricorn sun, moon, or rising, and you are also a life path number 5, then this reading is for you. So we're going to take a look at the higher expressions of both Capricorn and the 5, as well as the lower expressions, so that you can see sort of how these energies work together, where you may feel push and pull energy between them, and maybe how they work against each other, so the challenges that may surface because of that. So before we get into it, I just want to mention that I myself am a 4 life path with a Capricorn sun, but I also have a tremendous amount of 5 energy throughout my numerology report. So I definitely empathize with this energy. I just want to say that because when I talk about push-pull, you definitely will feel some level of that with Capricorn energy and 5 energy, really any earth energy. But it's also very beautiful energy to work with. Okay, so let's get into it. So Capricorn is, of course, an earth energy. Capricorn is very ambitious, persistent, practical, disciplined, highly sensitive, responsible, self-disciplined, patient, organized, wise, reliable, creative, and very loyal. When we look at the lower expression of Capricorn, we see that they can be cynical, selfish, unforgiving, a perfectionist, egotistical. They can be a loner. They're overly cautious with, stepping outside that comfort zone, taking risks. They can be pessimistic and rarely satisfied. Like nothing they do is good enough. Nothing anybody else does is good enough. That sort of thing. So when we look at the 5 energy, we have this very extroverted energy that's very fast moving energy. And I will mention, if you are a 5, especially if you have any kind of earth energy within you, very physical energy, it would probably benefit you to move your body in some way each and every day, to move that energy, because again, there's so much energy moving through you, and it's such fast moving energy that it can very easily stagnate. And if you also have Capricorn, Virgo, or Taurus, that's the other one. If you have any of those sort of earth energies and are very on the physical plane, again, you're just doing some kind of physical movement every day will help to move that energy. Just want to make sure I mention that for 5s, because there's just so much energy moving through, and it can very quickly stagnate. So 5 energy is, again, mostly extroverted. It's an air element. It is mostly associated with Gemini energy. When we look at the 5, or the energy of the 5's positive traits, we see this very independent, risk taker, wants to experience life through all of its senses, is very versatile, humorous, got a great sense of humor, very tolerant, very creative and artistic, very quick thinking, eager to learn, loves to travel and explore, a visionary, a good communicator. It likes to be constructively busy, not busy for the sake of being busy, but it likes to be constructively busy. Again, moving that physical energy, moving all that creative life force that's moving through them so quickly. It's a very sociable energy as well. So again, it's more extroverted. It likes to be out there. It likes to, be building those relationships, being creative. It's, 5s are often entrepreneurs, just because sometimes that sort of more corporate environment feels a little bit too rigid or constrictive for them. So a lot of times they're the artists, they're the creators, they like to set their own schedules. They like that freedom. When we look at the lower expression of the 5s, we see dissatisfaction, easily bored, restlessness, making decisions without enough forethought, so impulsivity, moody and temperamental, and just kind of flighty where they can't focus their energy. Their energy is very scattered, right? So when we look at, you can already see the push and the pull between that earth energy and that 5. We have this very expansive energy of the 5 that likes its freedom, likes to explore, wants to experience life through all of its senses. Then we have this Capricorn earth energy that's very disciplined, responsible, self-disciplined, patient, reliable, right? Like, it's still creative and highly sensitive, of course, and all that, but it's a very ambitious energy, a very loyal energy. And so it's much, 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 much more grounded than the 5 energy, right? Now, so you can see that push-pull, right? It's almost like you've got two sides of yourself working sort of against each other, and you've got to figure out how to make them work in tandem. And that's going to be like a lifelong thing. Because again, 5 energy is always in flux. It's constantly changing. There's lots of transformations. And that's why 5s are so adaptable. They're used to that. Capricorns, on the other hand, that energy likes the stability, likes the security, likes to know that they can make a plan and it's going to stick. And so again, it just becomes this push-pull. Now, with that being said, so even in your higher expression of yourself, you will feel that push-pull. That's going to be like a constant for you throughout your lifetime, because again, that Capricorn energy is like tugging you to be more secure, more grounded, more ambitious, more focused. And that 5 energy is like, I want to get out there and play. I want to get out there and experience. I want to travel. I want to adventure. I want to be the risk taker. I want to take this risk. I want to take that risk. And the Capricorn is like, ooh, I want to be a little bit more sound in my judgments. So it's just this constant push-pull that you'll feel, but you'll figure out your happy medium. Now, with that being said, the higher expression of Capricorn is very beneficial to the higher expression of the 5, because it does ground you. It does help you to get focused. It helps to harness all of that big explosive energy of the 5, and it gives it a purpose. It gives it the ambition behind the Capricorn energy gives that 5 energy that purpose and that vision, so that it can focus all and harness all that energy and move towards that vision and create what it actually wants to see, right? So it's not as scattered. So it's actually very, very beautiful energy. Very, it's so disciplined. Capricorn energy is so disciplined. Like, if you want a job done good and completed on time and done right the first time, you would give it to a Capricorn, right? And so it's kind of like, you wouldn't necessarily give it to a 5, because the 5 is going to explore all these things. It's going to test all these different theories and ideas and stuff, and it's going to be really creative, and it might take longer than they said that it would take, and that sort of thing, right? So you just kind of see there's just two very distinctive sides of yourself when you've got Capricorn and 5 energy. But that Capricorn energy works beautifully with the 5 to help to moderate some of that energy and to allow that 5 to find their moderation and and work in purpose, right? Like, to get focused, to become the expert at something while using that creativity, not diminishing the aspects of the 5, but working with the aspects of the 5 and just making it that much more powerful. So it's like, I always say, if you have Capricorn energy and you have 5 energy, you more than likely came to this planet to accomplish something very specific, but that was unconventional, that was bigger in scope, right? That was beyond the social norm, that requires creative thinking and sort of individual thinking, but that's also very disciplined, right? You have to be disciplined to create whatever this is, but you need that artistic, creative side of yourself in a big, expansive way to be able to do whatever this is. So it's very strategic, whatever your soul was thinking. And these two energies will really work well together when you find that happy balance and can make them work for you. Then you'll be unstoppable, and whatever you create will probably be pretty big and sort of more visionary in sense, right? So it's really, really complementary, beautiful energy. It's just you'll feel that push and pull throughout your experience. Now, when we look at the lower expression, that becomes even more relevant, right? That push-pull energy, because you've got the cynical, selfish, unforgiving, perfectionist, egotistical, loner, overly cautious, pessimistic, rarely satisfied energy of the Capricorn, with those negative traits of the 5, which again is dissatisfied, again, rarely satisfied, of the Capricorn. Also with the 5, easily bored, restless, impulsive, moody, just again, unable to commit to certain things. And so it just really becomes like you've got this very, very overly grounding energy of the lower expression of the Capricorn, and this energy of the 5 that wants to break free. And so again, you end up sort of fighting yourself, where it's like you become incredibly restless and frustrated and moody because you're not going at the pace you want to go at. Remember, 5 energy is super fast moving, and the Capricorn energy is more slow moving. It's more methodical. It's going to take very calculated steps to accomplish the accomplishments that it wants to make, right? It's very disciplined. So it's a slow moving energy. So again, when you're in your lower expressions of both Capricorn and the 5, it's definitely going to feel like you are a turtle and a rabbit within your own body, and the rabbit wants to go and the turtle wants to stay. And it's just like this constant push-pull. And it just becomes, again, like this energy of, I've used this example before for other readings, but it's like a dog chasing its tail. You become like just running in circles, or a hamster on a wheel, right? And it can be incredibly frustrating. So, but the lower expressions are not bad. They are meant to show us something, that we're meant to learn something from them. They are a part of who we are. They're not going anywhere. So we just have to learn to work with them and to recognize them, to be aware of them when they surface, and how to best work through them so that we can elevate into those higher expressions. Because again, you're always going to have that push-pull. You're always going to have that feeling of like, part of you wants to go, part of you wants to stay. It's just kind of like that really like just constant tug of war. But when you're in your higher expressions, you can work with that energy in a way that will propel you, as opposed to keeping you stuck. So again, it's just about finding that balance. But hopefully this is kind of helpful to show you sort of what those lower expressions look like, what they could potentially feel like, even what you feel like in your higher and lower expression, your higher expressions, and to understand that that's normal, right? Like it's that with that 5 energy and that Capricorn energy, even when you're in your highest expression, even when you found your balance, you're still going to feel that tug of war, but it's just making it work with you. And if anything, that just continues to keep you moving, right? It just keeps fueling you to keep exploring, right? And to do so in a disciplined way, which is really powerful. You definitely came here to accomplish something very specific in this lifetime with these energies, no doubt about it. So when you fall into those negative traits, again, it's not a bad thing. It's just going to feel really uncomfortable. And you just need to figure out, how to work with it. What is it trying to show you, and how to move beyond it, and how to transmute it so that you can move into those higher expressions. Okay. So I hope that this was helpful. I'm right there with you with all my Capricorn and 5 energy. So I completely understand how this feels. And, you just learn to work with it. So, and let it work for you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Take care. Aquarius. If you are an Aquarius, sun, moon, or rising, and you are also a life path number 5, then this reading is for you. I will say that if you've got Aquarius energy and 5 energy, this is such a fun combination. I myself am an Aquarius moon, and I have a ton of 5 energy throughout my numerology report. I'm a life path 4, but I have so much 5, I might as well be a 5. But anyway, this is fun energy. This is great energy. This is just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But let's dive into it, and I'll explain it. So we are going to look at the higher and the lower expressions of Aquarius and the higher and the lower expressions of the 5, so you can see how these energies work together, how they potentially work against each other, and what challenges could kind of come up because of that. So let's take a closer look. So Aquarius, of course, is an air sign. when Aquarius is in its higher expression, we see them being very adaptable to change. They are esoteric, they're smart, they're creative, they're friendly, they're independent, they're free-spirited, and they're unconventional in their thinking. They're honest, devoted, they typically have a positive outlook and are very optimistic. They can be very passionate, they can be reliable, mysterious, and they are the freedom seekers. Now, when we look at the lower expression of Aquarius, we see a short attention span, a lack of focus, lack of empathy, unpredictable, stubborn, extremist, aloofness, pessimistic, overly rebellious, and impatient. Now, it is eerie how similar the 5 energy is to the Aquarian energy. They really work well together, and they really work well against each other. Like they really fuel each other in their lower expressions as well. But let's take a look at the 5 energy. So 5 energy is mostly extroverted energy. I would also say Aquarius is more extroverted in its energy. When we look at the astrological connection of the 5 energy, though, it's actually more Gemini. And so it is an air sign, similar to Aquarius, but it's a very fast-moving energy. Now, if you are a 5, I've said this in every reading, so if you've listened to your other, sun, moon, or rising, then you've already heard this, but it's really important just to mention, if you're a 5 energy, you have so much energy moving through you at such a fast pace that it is very beneficial to find a way to move your body each and every day in some way, whatever you're capable of doing, to move that energy physically. That will really help you to keep that energy from stagnating, because when it stagnates, that's when you become restless and dissatisfied and all those things, and it just becomes really uncomfortable. So it really helps 5s to be able to do some kind of body movement each day, whatever that looks like for you. So when we look at the positive traits of the 5, it's funny because they're so similar to Aquarius. We've got versatility. 5s are sort of in constant flux. Things are always changing. So they have to be very, very versatile and adaptable to change, right? It's like 5 energy is just changing constantly. And again, it's that fast-moving energy. Things are just constantly changing. 5s can be very humorous. They have a great sense of humor. They can be very tolerant. They can be creative and artistic. They're quick thinkers. They are eager to learn. They love to travel and explore. They're the visionaries. They're great communicators. They like to be constructively busy, and they're very sociable. 5s like to experience life through all of their senses. They just want to experience it all. They're going to be the risk takers. They're independent, but they also can have very solid relationships as long as those relationships allow them to have that freedom. Because again, they like the expansiveness. They want the freedom. They're the freedom seekers, just like Aquarians, they also are. Aquarius is also the freedom seekers of the Zodiac, right? They want that to be able to live and think unconventionally. And the same thing goes for the 5, which feeds into that creativity. So again, if we look at the positive traits of both Aquarius and the 5, they just compound that beautiful, childlike, exploratory, unconventional energy. They assist each other in that independence. Both Aquarius and the 5 like their independence. They don't want to feel restricted. They don't like a lot of rules. They don't like a lot of confinement. They want to be able to express themselves openly, unconventionally, creatively, without a lot of restrictions. And so you're going to see, so again, they just feed into each other. So if you have a lot of Aquarius energy, or you have Aquarius energy and you are also a 5, or you have a lot of 5s in your numerology report, then you definitely came here to do or create something unconventional, to be able to step into the world and live in purpose as authentically as possible without apology, right? To have that expansiveness and to be able to think and live outside the box. Like 5 energy as well as Aquarius energy, they're not meant to be comfortable in this lifetime. There's just too much going on. There's too much change. There's too much to explore. They're not meant to be fenced in, right? And so again, if you have that Aquarius energy and 5 energy, then you are meant to be living outside of the box. You are meant to be, your relationships might be very unconventional. Your how you show up in purpose, the work that you do may be very unconventional. How you dress, how you think, whatever. And so again, that Aquarian energy just feeds into that 5 energy and it just compounds it. And it's just, now you show up as even this bigger energy. So it's very beautiful when it's together, and it works very well together. Again, they're both air signs. When we look at the lower traits of the 5, we see again, very similar to the Aquarius energy. Very dissatisfied, shortest attention span, easily bored, restless, impulsive, moody, temperamental, unable to finish what they start or to focus their energy. Like 5s really struggle with focusing their energy long enough to be able to accomplish something, right? Because they're just so, their mind is just in a million different places. They want to accomplish so much. They want to do so much. They want to create so much. And so it becomes very hard to become the expert in something, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if your energy becomes fragmented or scattered, that can be definitely challenging, because you don't really see anything come to fruition because your energy is just all over the place. So when you're in your lower expression of Aquarius and your lower expression of your 5, that energy is just all over the place. It, like, really the word would be chaos. It just becomes so chaotic. Like the energy becomes so chaotic. And with both Aquarius and that 5 energy, I would say they both have very a lot of energy moving through them, right? It's a very creative life force behind you, and you're meant to express that in a very unconventional way. And so when you're in those lower expressions, it just becomes very chaotic, and it becomes very difficult to work with those energies. And so within you, you may just feel like an incredible sense of turmoil, like you have all this energy, but nothing is like coming to fruition with it. Nothing is being created with it. And you become very frustrated with that, very moody, very temperamental, and then more impulsive, right? Because you're like, well, this isn't working, so let me try this. And this isn't working, so let me try this. And you just become more and more and more and more scattered, right? More and more just impatient with yourself and the timeline. So it can really hold you back, right? Is basically what I'm trying to say. Now, I will also say that those lower expressions are not bad. They are not, they are a part of who we are. We are meant to experience them. We're meant to understand them. We're meant to work with them and learn something from them. So if you are in your lower expressions of Aquarius and your lower expressions of your 5, and you just feel like complete chaos, like everything you do is, you're putting in all of this energy in a million different places and nothing is happening, and you're getting very frustrated about that, then it's time to take a closer look at, okay, what are these challenges? What am I facing? What is it trying to show me? How can I work with this energy? What can I do with it, right? Because if you're listening to this, then you are woke enough, you are aware enough, right? You have self-awareness enough to know when you're out of alignment. And so when you're out of alignment, more than likely you are in one of those negative traits or several of those negative traits. And it's just about the awareness, right? It doesn't mean you're supposed to get rid of the lower traits. They're a part of you. You're going to see them surface throughout your lifetime. You're just meant to be aware of it, understand it, see what it's trying to show you, and learn from it, and then pull the wisdom, and then move to the higher elevation, right? Because again, when you are in your higher expression of both Aquarius and 5, it is such a fun, big, explosive energy. It's just what you can create with that energy is just, beyond comprehension, because you've got these two powerful air energies combining and sort of magnetizing whatever it is that it touches or envisions. Yeah, it's beautiful, powerful energy. It's just when you fall into those lower expressions, you're really going to feel chaotic. Things in your life are going to turn chaotic. And you just need to figure out what it's trying to show you. What is the next step? Because the next step, the wisdom, is within that challenge. And so it's kind of like a computer game, right? Like a computer game. I can't think like I don't know why that's like eluding me right now. But anyway, a computer game. Anyway, okay. So it's kind of like you're in that where you're like playing like Zelda or something, right? Where you're like, you level up and you get new tools, and now you need to learn how to use those tools, but you're only going to learn how to use those tools through the challenges that you face with those experiences, right? And so that's similar to what you will feel when you're in those lower expressions of the 5 and the Aquarius energy, and you just need to figure it out. You just need to find your happy medium and find what it's trying to show you. And I will say, with the 5 and the Aquarius energy, moderation are going to be key for you. Figuring out the moderation, not confining yourself, not restricting yourself, moderating, right? Like mitigating that energy enough to where you can work with it. Because 5 and Aquarius energy are so expansive that you could easily throw yourself into an extreme and then fall into those lower traits. So again, anytime we face challenges, anytime we're in a lower trait of ourselves, there will be a challenge that surfaces. There will be an uncomfortableness around it that surfaces. Video games is what I was trying to think of, which is, anyway, not just computer games, video games. Okay, sorry. But yeah, so it's really going to be about finding out what those negative traits are trying to show you and what you can pull from them, what you can learn, and then move from there. So, but yeah, overall, Aquarius and 5 energy is a lot of fun. It feeds off each other. It's just, it cheers each other on. It's really beautiful energy to work with. It's one of those ones where it's like you don't feel like you're in a tug of war with each other. You don't feel like you're pushing and pulling, where you would feel that with like more earth energy with 5s. It's very holistic. It feels very, very good. Or Aquarius energy with 5 energy feels really good. So I hope this has been helpful. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, everyone. Pisces, if you are a sun, moon, or rising sign of Pisces, and you are also a life path number 5, then this is for you. So we're going to look at the higher and the lower expressions of both Pisces and the life path number 5, and so that you can kind of see how these energies work together and how they may work against each other and create some challenges for you throughout your lifetime. So let's go ahead and look at Pisces first. So Pisces, of course, is a water sign. When Pisces is in its highest expression, we see an energy that's highly adaptable. They are the visionaries, they're kind, they're gentle, they're highly intuitive and psychic. They can be very creative, empathetic, generous, emotionally mature. They're generally laid back and very agreeable. Now, when we see Pisces in its lower expression, we see sort of overly emotional, hypersensitivity, overly trusting, easily swayed or influenced, closed off emotionally, victim mentality, and often moody. Now, when we look at the higher and lower expressions of the 5, you can see how these energies are very similar in a lot of ways, but also how they can work against each other. So 5 energy is mostly extroverted energy. It's a air element and associated mostly with Gemini, very similar to Gemini. Now, I will say that 5 energy is a very fast-moving energy. So if you are a 5 life path, or you have a lot of 5s in your numerology report, then it would be beneficial for you to move your body in some way every single day. And I say that because it's such a fast-moving energy that it can stagnate very easily. But if you can do some kind of movement, like running or walking or dancing or, whatever you're capable of, but some kind of dedicated movement to move that energy physically every single day, that will really help you in helping that energy to move through you so that it doesn't get stagnated, so that you don't become restless and frustrated. Now, when we look at the positive traits of the 5, we see, again, versatility. Similar to Pisces, we see this need to be highly adaptable because 5 energy, again, because it's so fast moving, there's constant changes, there's constant redirections, pivots, transformations. It's just this, it's a very highly adaptable life path number because of all of the flux, right? There's a lot of fluctuations. And they just need to learn to adapt to them, right? And be versatile. They can be a very humorous energy, and so have a great sense of humor. They're very tolerant. They are creative and artistic, quick thinking, eager to learn, loves to travel and explore. They are also the visionaries. So again, very complementary to that Piscean energy. They're great communicators. They like to be constructively busy, and they're a very sociable energy. 5 energy they're risk takers. They like to be independent and have freedom, but they are also very capable of being in very dedicated relationships, as long as those relationships allow them to have that independence and freedom. But they like to experience life through all of their senses. And so they don't want to feel restricted. They don't want to feel confined. That's when they start to get really restless and frustrated and moody and all those things. So they like to have their space to move. So if we look at those two the positive traits of the 5 and the positive traits of Pisces, we can definitely see how they work together. Pisces, again, being very adaptable, being the visionary, same thing with the 5, very has big visions for the future, that sort of thing. Both are very kind and gentle. Both are very creative energies, right? And emotionally mature and laid back. Like 5 energy is pretty laid back. It's a fast moving energy, but it's pretty laid back and it's very sociable. So people are very drawn to this energy because it's usually like a larger than life energy. It's more, again, it likes to be creative and doing things and working with others to build and collaborate and make big fun things, right? And that's the same thing with Pisces. All the Pisces I know are very creative in some way. So again, it just kind of fuels one another. And then you bring in that sort of highly intuitive psychic energy of Pisces, and that just allows the 5 energy to go a lot deeper within itself, to tap into that mysticism, to tap into that more ethereal side of themselves when they're creating, right? And so it's actually a really beautiful complementary energy for one another. Now, when we get into lower expressions, we see for 5, we see dissatisfied easily, easily bored, restless, impulsive, moody, temperamental, unable to finish what they start. Sort of their energy is fragmented and sort of all over the place, right? And when you couple that with the lower expression of Pisces, with that sort of victim mentality or the hypersensitivity or overly or easily swayed or influenced by others, right? And being closed off emotionally and being overly emotional. Those are just things that sort of feed into that 5 lower octave of the moody temperament, geez, if I can speak. And it just sort of creates this dissatisfied, overly emotional energy where it's like it just becomes kind of like this depressive energy, restrictive energy. Restrictive is probably the better word, where your emotions kind of take over, you become overly emotional and unable to control your own emotions or work with them, right? And then you become confined, restricted, withdrawn, and at that 5 energy starts like getting restless, wants to move, wants to like be doing something, wants to be traveling, exploring, creating, whatever the case may be, but you're too deep within your emotions. You're too, someone says or does something and you're too hypersensitive to where it just completely derails you. And so you can just kind of see how that would make that 5 energy very stuck, right? If you're and the Pisces energy too, right? They work in tandem. But it's like you just become stuck within your emotions, within your circumstances, within your situation, and you can't really see a way out of it. So it just sort of feels like you are in quicksand, is probably the best way to put it, which for 5 energy, that can be really challenging because 5 energy does not want to be constricted. It does not want to be confined. And if you're in quicksand, you're not moving. You're just like, things are just compounding and getting more and more heavy, and it's very difficult to move beyond that. But that's part of the challenge, right? There's something there for you to learn if you are in that situation or if you are in that lower expression. So there's nothing wrong with our lower expressions. They're part of who we are. We're going to revisit those lower expressions throughout life. So we're not meant to eradicate them. We are meant to learn to understand them, to feel them, to experience them, to gain the wisdom through the challenges that we face when we're in those lower expressions. They are always meant to show us something. There's something to learn there. So they're not the villain, right? But we do much better when we're in our higher expressions. That's where we are in purpose. That's where we function the best. That's where we contribute the most. That's where we accomplish what our soul wants to accomplish for these Piscean and 5 energies, right? That's why our soul chose those energies. If your soul chose to be a Pisces sun, moon, rising, and a 5, that was with there was some forethought to that, right? There was that was definitely very methodical in the process. So it's not a mistake that you're here with Pisces, sun, moon, rising, and a 5 energy. Just know that when you start to feel like you're in quicksand, like you're drowning in your own emotions and you're starting to feel constricted and confined, and that's really eating at your 5 energy, you're probably in a lower expression, and you need to look to see what is it trying to show you? What is the challenge that you're being faced with? What is that challenge showing you so that you can pull the wisdom from it and then move into a higher elevation? So we're not demonizing our lower traits. We're learning to work with them, right? So that we can use them to elevate us even higher. So hopefully this is helpful in just kind of showing you how these signs kind of work together, how these energies work together, and how they can potentially derail and sort of suffocate one another, right? So yeah, it's just a matter of us finding our happy medium, working with these energies, finding out how they feel, what feels good, what doesn't feel good, because even in your higher expressions, especially as a 5, you can fall into those extremes. Moderation is always key when it comes to 5 energy. And so when you're in an extreme, it's not going to feel good. You're not going to be at your highest expression of yourself. And you can even fall into extremes in those positive traits as well. So those lower traits are showing you what it feels like to not be as high functioning as you came here to be, right? And so see what the lesson is, see what you can learn from it, and move from that space. So I hope this is helpful in highlighting those for you. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.